Welcome everybody. Welcome Vijaya, and welcome everybody to yet another Wisdom Jam. Uh, and today I am joined with a very inspiring person, a person who exudes so much energy, a person who a lot of us in the social space would know and have encountered simply because of her immense, vast amount of work. I'm with Vijaya Balaji. Vijaya is the CEO and Managing Director of Toolbox India, the founder of Social Lens Consulting, worked with over 150 social organizations, not for profits, inspiring each of them, I'm sure, to rise to their potential. And also on the boards of several not for profits, on the India at 75 CIA committee, and really holding places of responsibility at a sector level. And of course, a very fun and exciting person to have a chat with. So, Vijaya, welcome and thank you for receiving our invitation.
Thank you, Abhishek. I'm so delighted to be here. Uh, I think the wisdom chats and the wisdom shots have just been eclectic and exciting. So very happy to be here.
So, yeah, my first question actually, honestly, is really what's the source of the energy that you bring to the work that you do? I mean, you had a busy day today. You told us, I know I'm not allowed to quote this, but you had an extremely busy day. You traveled hours, you've done so many things, and here you are. I just wish the organize this energy, the whole sector should have the kind of energy you have, and we'll make a very different world. So, what's the secret of that energy, and how do we infuse that in organizations?
Um, so firstly, I think personally, I think the energy which people keep saying I keep exuding, I think it's one of uh, God's gifts. Okay. I truly believe that. I believe in the energy of the universe, and I'm very blessed to have a tiny bit of it. But I also say this, Abhishek. I think the one thing that, if you really want to fault me, is to fault me about the extent I love what I do. Okay. Moving into the social sector is actually my third act professionally. It's my favorite story. I came in and stumbled into this by accident 13 years ago, um, when a very casual conversation just led me to finding my way into Toolbox. I knew nothing. I spent the first 45 days going home crying every day because I didn't know. But I think 45 days later, 45 to 60 days later, I think it is one of the greatest love stories of my life because I fell in love with the work that I do. Uh, and I consider myself incredibly lucky and blessed to be able to love what I do. Um, Having said that, I don't think it's fair to place that burden on everybody that they have to love what they do, right? A lot of people are going to see what they do as work, and that's okay. It's one of the things I tell myself when, you know, we want to see reflections of our perspectives in our teams, and that's not fair to them. But every organization's, I don't want to use big words, but say there is a certain purpose, whether it's articulated as a vision, whether it's articulated as a goal, whether it is articulated as a strategic objective that or a direction in which the organization wants to move, and that has to percolate to everybody. That's how cultures get built, where everybody sees. See, there is this larger thing that you want to do. Somebody could say that, okay, what's this going to mean for me? I'm here, I'm the data guy. My job is just to punch and analyze data between 10. You want to focus on, okay, I need to do X number of things because that's what my job description says. But I think if leaders work consciously enough to explain why what we do is important, you start distilling that little bit of purpose. See, people want to be connected. I mean, we've heard countless reasons why people will say, like, I don't see what I'm doing here. This isn't for me. Part of a leader's job is also to channelize intent of people, yeah, intent and interest. And that was the first lesson I learned at Toolbox, because I had to channelize intent of volunteers to a successful outcome so that they felt we all see validation is one point, one part of the story, but we also need to see that what we do counts. And especially today, where you're dealing with a workforce which are millennials and Gen Zs, their approach to life is very different. They look at work as chalking up experiences, which counts. They want to look back on their life and say that, during that time when I was there, I had a great working atmosphere. I had great colleagues. My boss would tell us three different exciting things. We need to, and those are the things that they carry. So I think there is the paradigm of how we influence teams is changed, Abhishek.
Yeah, I think so. I think I hear you when you say that when purpose percolates, cultures get built.
Yes.
And when I look at my own journey, it's not been so simple. I guess there have been parts in my life as a founder where I have set up organizations to meet my needs. And
Yeah.
there have been times where my needs have superseded purpose. Purpose has expanded to include what I want. And I think it's taken me a while to realize, it is a simple and factual thing. Right? There is something to the element of being honest to the purpose that has been set out, and not usurp the purpose for personal egos, agendas, aggrandization.
Yes.
And as a founder, I can attest that there are so many temptations to stray from the purpose or to, flex the purpose in this direction, that direction. Because the whole world's pressurized. The purpose is where the whole load is held, I feel.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, and a true purpose is the one that holds all that and gives guidance in the chaos, right? Like it's what
Yes.
anchors.
Yes.
Uh, and and I think in my journey, it's taken me a while to kind of move out from the whole personal paradigm of saying, and it's taken me a while to realize that so many organizations I set up, was I able to keep them true to their purpose, or was the purpose moving based on my unconscious, unexpressed needs? I don't know. Do you see that happen at places?
I think yes and no. Yes and no, Abhishek. I think so. So technically, I'm not the founder of Toolbox, right? But I don't think even for a second. For the early years, I believed I was the custodian, the guardian of the organization. But I've also had incredibly generous founders who placed their complete faith in me and said that, okay, you know what? You will drive this organization the way you want. We're just here to, if there's anything we can do, we'll do. Otherwise, we'll just stay out of your way. I think that's incredibly generous and gracious of them. But here's what I'll tell you. I think I won't go into the sort of challenges that founders face, okay, because there's so many. But I also think it's tough on founders, right? You go through moments when you wonder, why do I have to be subjected to so much of unwarranted, forget the pressures, even a lot of things, demands placed on you, or the expectation that, okay, you know what, you're the founder, so you do it, or this is your call, this is not my call. Whether it's rudeness, whether it is pressure, whether it is seeking answers, and then I've gone through moments like, okay, for whom am I doing this? Is this for me? I don't know if I'm fully answering your question, but we do go through those moments. Why am I doing this? Am I also temporarily blurred? Is my purpose temporarily blurred because there's so much coming at me? And yet I cannot say any of that to anybody, right? I can't talk about it to my board. I can't talk about it to my team. You definitely don't want to go home and talk about it after so whom do you really talk to?
Yeah.
But we do go through those moments when I would say there is a temporary blurring and you question that very purpose that you believe in. Because
Mm-hmm.
it
There
is
are,
hard. It is hard for anybody, founder or non-founder, who are running organizations. It is incredibly hard.
yeah. No, thanks for acknowledging that. I think staying on course, drawing energy from the purpose, right, and holding that, I think is so essential. But the question that was coming to me, Vijaya, and segue from this only. So one is it's a capacity, right? A capacity to hold purpose in the face of all the storms and draw energy from it, use it to
Yes,
prioritize. So it's a great capacity, but
absolutely.
a subtler capacity, a more subtler or meta capacity than say just communication. For this is like a deeper capacity. Somehow I feel.
Yes.
I'm curious. And since the topic of our conversation was how to build capacity in social sector organizations, and there are so many capacities, competencies, things. So if you would have, say, a toolbox genie, right? Like, or let's say that you had only between 1 and 3 capacities, like saying that these are essential, like these are central. And I'm pushing this thinking just to understand also from your perspective, what would you say are essential across organizations? Like these are non-negotiable. These are the ones to go for. If you had to choose 1 or 3, which ones would you choose?
Actually, Abhishek, and I think this is where the evolving and understanding, it's a great question, by the way. Okay. And thank you for bringing this up, because every capacity building program that you see, including Toolbox and Social Lens, you will say these are the domains we're working on and so on. And I think I'm so excited to talk about what I really think are the fundamentals and where my work in recent time has been going. It's still not fully out, but we're ready with it. I think uh, the first thing for any organization in any capacity building journey, it starts with trying to understand themselves. Okay. It actually starts with that. What type of an organization are you? Even before
Hmm.
you go into, I'll do a diagnostics, I'll do a needs assessment, we'll do a baseline, acha, fundraising. And honestly, if you were to ask me what is the most fundamental thing, I would just say fundraising, because anything you do finally boils down to fundraising. You need money because capital is the fuel injection, and without that, you're not going to be able to do anything. So let's keep the domains aside. I think domains will all follow the course. Uh, I truly believe it is, first of all, understanding the type of organization you are. Okay. Which means you need to look at uh, how do, and what does it mean in terms of what is very, very visible and what is not very visible. Obviously, it's about, okay, as an organization, what are my assets and things like that. But I'm digging deeper, saying that what is the mindset of this organization?
Hmm.
What are the different layers? What is the prevalent culture? To what extent has this purpose or vision distilled and percolated? Because honestly, the fundamental thing that you need at the beginning of capacity building is to have an organization which is invested in change at all levels. And that investment comes when they recognize where they are,
Hmm.
where they want to get to, whether they're willing to do what it takes to get there, and then making it happen.
Hmm.
These
Hmm.
are the
Hmm.
fundamental things. Then you can
Amazing.
say, that's it. That's really it. You crack that piece, and nobody's done that, right? Because we're constantly saying that, acha, ye budget itna hai, sector ye hai, the team size ye hai. We start applying those and start slotting them and saying that, okay, you're this thing. But if what we've understood in the sector is, you could be a 40-year-old organization, but your mindset to change isn't there. You could be a very young organization which has a lot of agility. You could be a young organization which has very quickly advanced, because of that agility, has advanced in building certain essential blocks. And we've seen that with young founders. See, the young founders, the extent they're leveraging tech, communications, emerging trends are so much more faster, because it's that age, that agility. Agility is a superpower today. Agility also builds resilience for you, because you know how to quickly adapt yourself.
Yeah.
So I think this is what is fundamental. And uh, But again, these, this is how, this is how the studies, the knowledge, and the methodologies evolve, right? It's okay if it's coming now, because honestly, capacity building is taking center stage now. 13 years ago, when I set up Toolbox, and when I went to organizations and I asked, what do you want? They said, "Aap fundraising karoge kya? Will you build my website? Will you help me hire a CEO?" And why did they ask us these three things, Abhishek? Because they are tangible. But when you go and tell them, no, I'll help you build systems, I'll help you bring in efficiency, there's no immediate outcome of that. It's a harder sell. And then it starts by saying, tell us what you need and we'll do it. And that's how needs assessment came into place. Then we sort of evolved and said, okay, let's start doing organization diagnostics. I built 3 different organization diagnostic tools which diagnose organizations. That's where slowly you start learning more and more. And then you say, it's not, those are step 2 and step 3. Let's just try and understand, in this whole thing about what sort of a leader you want to be, what sort of a leader do you want to be for your team, what sort of a leader do you want to be for yourself, which directs the way in which you're going to move your organization. It starts with the fundamental analysis and delving of what sort of a person are you. Is it not? It's the same thing that applies for organizations before we embark on capacity building.
Can't agree more. It's so true. And yeah, I think just to build on what you're saying, there are organizations that understand themselves and know themselves very well. And then there are organizations that delude themselves at times, or they refuse to see parts of themselves. They keep running into the same patterns and same problems, but just refuse to see blind spots. And I've also found this coupling between the leader and the organization, the founder, leader, and the org patterns and DNA, right?
Yeah.
I've almost, so for example, there are, I know of an organization which loves to get into challenging situations, right? And comes from the founder who finds aliveness in challenging situations. So unconsciously now, when we're working, that organization manifesting challenging situations again and again.
Yeah.
It's coming from, this is where we relevant and count. Like, so peacetime is not for us. And though the aspiration is, we would like to be in a stable patch, but we're constantly manifesting this. So I think what you're saying is so important, and especially the parts of organizations that they refuse to see about themselves because they're inconvenient or they're ugly or they're, and a lot of that shadow. So one is, yes, knowing my DNA, who I am, and therefore who I am not. Because somehow I feel everybody wants the best of both worlds. And yes, in an ideal situation, you have agility and stability and everything. But net, there are also trade-offs organizations have made over the years. Some organizations have been very So yeah, I think the best of both worlds, I really believe, is possible. But with self-awareness and seeing how these opposite forces are interplaying in this moment, and how are we reacting to that? So I think what you're saying is so true and so rich, right? Starting with know thyself. I think that's a great.
For the longest time, and you're right. So there are a couple of things here which I just want to unpack from what you've said, which is so true, Abhishek. One, organizations have always been in this constant state of fighting fires. It's almost, while there are equal number of organizations who are pained that they are in that constant state, because fatigue will kick in. There are some organizations who thrive on it because you have a founder who's like a adrenaline junkie. They thrive on those situations. They see it as a almost like a, we're so resilient that bring it on sort of a thing. I don't think that's fair to the organizations. The organization isn't made up of one person. People want a little bit of, not downtime, but you want to cruise steady waters without actively seeking it for yourself. And I think progress and moving forward, an organization should not be confused with constantly identifying new challenges and things which are audacious all the time. Fatigue sets in. That's when the purpose is lost, because this then just becomes about what the founder or the leader, not the founder, the leader believes to be his or her purpose. That's not there with the others. So I think that there are enough conversations and pressures on growth, on scale. It's okay for organizations to say that, we're in a good place. we do X, we're doing X very well, and we want to continue just doing X. And that is absolutely okay.
Yes, yes, yes. Thanks for that. That's so refreshing to hear in the sense just acknowledging and validating one's own achievement. Somehow I feel the sector has a very strong inner critic and a judgmental voice saying it's never good enough. It's just almost like the unsaid assumption of the sector is like there's always so much more to do. The world has so many more problems. So I don't even sit back to say, whoa, this is as much I'm doing right now with so little, right? Like I just feel yeah.
There are two parts to this, I think one, mm, we can't disagree that there's a lot that needs to be done, right? Uh, we just take India, right? And I won't even speak about the rest of the world. I mean, India is important to me, so I'll speak about India. There are still a lot of inequities. Is something being done? Yes. Is there a way we need to see that we accelerate this a little bit? I would definitely agree, right? That's one part of it. So in a way, the statement does hold true that it's never enough. But we don't have to solve for it all by ourselves. There are a million civil society organizations. There are millions of people in this country who can be channeled into it, which is why I think people need to find a way to collaborate with each other. You have to, and this word is so sort of maligned now, right? Because on one side everybody's talking about it. So let me just not go with the word collaborate, but if all I'm saying is if one can find a way where two people can work together, the two organizations can work together, we're a long way away from it, Abhishek, because there are so many more elements which come into it. We're all chasing the same pool of capital that's available. Somebody says that, they want to do it that way, they can do, but this is not for me. It's going to take a lot more of evolved thinking to be able to shed some of our own, each organization to shed some of its own belief about how their way is the only way.
Yeah.
We can do that. It can be done. Because I think we also need to be cognizant that if we start treating the uncertainty of the available of capital, maybe it will trigger us to kind of do it with a little bit of sense of urgency. It doesn't take away the commitment, for the organizations that we worked with over the years. Abhishek, I've had the unique privilege of working with at least 1,000 of them in 13 years. Yeah. It's a large number. And each one of them, and that's just a small drop compared to the number which are there in this country and beyond. Everybody is doing their bit. If only we could see all that, making that sort of change, I think we'd all, we would breathe a little bit easy and actually sort of congratulate the efforts that one is making towards that. Otherwise, you do feel a sense of it's not enough. It's not enough. You do.
Yeah. True. Yeah. I think.
I mean, what do you think? What do you think? Let me just flip back at you. You've been asking me the questions, but let me flip this back at you. There are so many primary problems which still continue while new ones are emerging. How do organizations tackle that? Because, and why does it have to be the burden of only change-making social purpose organizations? Do these people, are they carrying a higher degree of social consciousness? Are they the flag bearers to carry passion, purpose, and commitment and to do this? I mean, we just have to see how people dig into the trenches and work, right? It's not easy. Does it take a different kind of person that one has to be? These are things which, how would you think about this, Abhishek? What would your thoughts be?
I totally feel team humanity. I feel all of us, we need, in these emergency times, we need all hands on board. So there's definitely that. But when I look at my own judgments, I mean, or when I look at my own journey, like what has stopped collaboration, right? Ego, judgments, and like idealism. I was going to come to the next question, which I was going to come to you was saying that, if you would be a doctor and there would be like a Dr. Vijaya Balaji clinic in a real way, I would show up saying, you know what, I suffer from idealism. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but I know it comes in the way. I can see it come in the way at so many points where, yeah, so much more is possible if I would just let go a little bit of this and just be more pragmatic about. And the reason I'm saying this is because so much more is possible just beyond our grasp, and what stands between that are some abstract ideas about how things should be, ideas of perfection, ideas of my way. It's costing us a lot, and in today's day and age, I think it's a luxury which I don't think any of us can afford. My way. I think we're like at a place where we need to just come in, all hands on board. So yeah, I would say it needs all, and yeah.
I would add two more eyes to it. You spoke about idealism. I would also add insecurity, and I would add inspiration. Okay. One, uh, there is no ideal world that exists, Abhishek, sadly. And I think as long as we can protect our children from not knowing that, I think we allow them to have a much more unbridled, uncorrupted childhood, because the child's mind is so pure. So you want to kind of, it's so precious, that kind of innocence, and where everything is sunshine and daisies, you want to protect that for some time. But but I think idealism does not, it's almost utopian now. Instead, I think lacing it with pragmatism allows leaders, allows people to look at what realistically they can hope to achieve, and then draw inspiration. And you need continued inspiration. You can't have inspiration like I'm inspired one day and then I'm down in the dumps in a year, or because that continued inspiration has to be there. That continued inspiration comes when you are pragmatic enough to know what you can do, and you do that well. So, I cannot transform the world. I don't look to capacity building. For me is never about transforming an organization. Who am I to transform an organization? I cannot even claim credit for that. What I would only try to do is work with them to strengthen them from where they are. No organization in this space is starting from a place of being down in the dumps. Let's not even go there. I think we need to be, I think we need to just accept and know that they know what they're doing. We're here to work with them and strengthen. Never coming from a place that we are here to transform. Who are we to transform? And the third thing is insecurity. We all carry insecurities. Individuals, as leaders, I am insecure about my organization. But I think maybe if we just stop looking on our shoulder, over our shoulder, or to see on LinkedIn what 10 others are doing, but instead look at what am I doing? What can I do better and differently, so that even if it's that one thing, I know that they will come to Toolbox for this one thing, or they will come to Social Lens for this one thing. And that one thing is enough, because you anyway can't do 10 things. We all can't do 10 things. We need to do just one thing.
Yeah. No, and I'm hearing a nice paradox, a good paradox here, saying that on one end, like you're saying, that one thing, and that you build with the organization. At the other side, I also see you as an audacious dreamer who keeps every barrier, like each time you think this is as much that's possible, you come back saying this is what I'm planning next. So to me, it's so interesting that on one end you're talking also about grounding in one thing, but the other end also you're dreaming so big with all this, right? Like the two seem to coexist.
I think the mind is an infinite space that we hold, Abhishek, and the restless mind will keep churning out ideas now, and not every idea will find its fruition. I know honestly that when I go to my team and I say that, hey guys, I've got an idea, they're bracing themselves like, oh, what's next? But um, it could be one thing. Okay, so let me put it this way. Ideas will keep coming to us. What we need to look at is not every idea that we get is the best idea, right? So what is it? What is it? An idea in itself is of no use unless you know what you're going to do with it, what it's going to take. I also believe for individuals and for us to drive change, the same methodology won't work. That's where my ideas come from. In terms of, I mean, capacity building was something I started doing 13 years ago. I still work in capacity building, organization development. Did we try different things as an entrepreneur? Of course I did. Saying that should we try tech? Should we try this? And there were expensive lessons because you are going to fail somewhere, and I have failed in those as well. And then to know that okay, this is not something I should be doing. So there's wisdom coming out from there. But what we're trying to do and the change that you want to drive requires fresh thought, fresh methodologies, fresh wisdom. And that is what I push for. Because what worked or what I said a year ago is not going to hold. Forget a year. What we did 3 months ago may not necessarily hold true today. So, to that extent, it is our utmost responsibility to keep pushing. And for me, this whole know the type of organization you are is a culmination of that. I didn't think, otherwise, why would this whole persona methodology come about? I could just come up with just another diagnostics tool, which is, but no, that is where we start moving to finding more in what we're doing. And that, which is of use, it has to be useful for whoever's going to consume it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, it sounds like a process of ongoing evolution, right? Like
yes,
you learn,
absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm also seeing this, Vijaya, that the pace at which, of course, change is happening in the world keeps increasing, and now you have GPT over the last few months, LLMs and language processing, and complexity keeps increasing. And I think I would love to hear from you on what anchors organizations. Is it purpose like through these kind of increasing chaos, increasing temptations? I think leaders have so many options today, and options keep exploding. You could do this and this and this, and so I'm very curious about that. Yes, evolution, like you said. What is that sutra जो पकड़ के हम चल सकते हैं या जिसकी साधना हम कर सकते हैं, even as the world around us is swirling faster and faster and then breaking into more and more millions of colors? What is it that orgs have been able to hold on to that lets them, be sane, I guess, and lets them evolve in their true DNA?
So
भटकते नहीं है. Yeah.
the first question that I constantly ask my team, and we keep going back to this, is who are we really doing this for? I think every now and then we need to remind ourselves of why we're doing something. Okay. I'll give you a very anecdote, and then I'll try to bring in the answer. Indulge me for a minute. One of my team was working on some sort of a report. Okay. Now you understand toolbox and social nets. We are sort of ecosystem builders, which means we're like intermediaries. We don't have direct community engagement. And so when the whole report was coming together, I only saw graphic art, Abhishek. Okay. I didn't see one picture of the community, right? And I said, why do we need pictures of the community in a report of a toolbox or the social nets? It's to remind us, because we don't have a direct connect to the community. And in the work that we do, the only belief which we have to carry very strongly is that what we do is going to percolate into some change for them. So when I do an impact assessment, I'd like to believe that the recommendations that I put for a program will be incorporated, which will mean better delivery mechanisms at the last end. When I work on capacity building, the enterprise, which is really the infrastructure which delivers the program, is better equipped to do it. So I think it first starts with who are we doing this for? Now, coming down to the crux of what you've asked, yes, we are being slammed with change so much. By the end of this year, if every organization has not trained its team's resources on how to leverage and use AI, you're left behind. Now, the extent you're going to use it, how much of it you're going to use it, are something which each organization has to decide. We also have this herd mentality, right, in everything now. कोई कुछ कर रहा है तो हमें भी करना है. We have to see what works for us. You know, in my early days in social lands as an entrepreneur, and maybe you will also be able to mirror some of your own experiences here. You want to try out everything because in the early days of an entrepreneur, you don't say no to any kind of work. छोटा काम हो, बड़ा काम हो, आता है, नहीं आता है, चलो सीख लेंगे, ये भी कर लेंगे. But while that's okay, I think the risks are more because you start saying that, हाँ, ये चाहिए आपको, हाँ, ये करके देंगे, ये भी करते. So then what do you really do? You need to find your that one thing which you're known for. Now, change also, organization, while we talk about agility, you can't keep changing, you can't keep incorporating every change that's coming about. It's not going to work. So we have to see, we have to listen to the voices of reason collectively and look at what it means for all of us when we bring in that change. And so to stay true to that, see, the DNA of organizations also changes, Vishek. I have seen the cultures in my organization change, evolve, and change again because it is defined by not just what we hold true, but internally, intrinsically, but also external influences and also the kind of team members who are coming in, right? My team is largely Gen Zs and millennials. There's great maturity and wisdom. And there's a lot that I am learning with them, which wasn't the case earlier when we had a different pool of co-workers. But throughout each of these, the one thing that has been a constant for us is who are we doing this for? Which has centered us.
Beautiful.
That has, so I think every organization has that defined somewhere for themselves. But it's good for us to keep reminding ourselves of it in the small ways and in the big ways. Brings you back.
True. No, I got reminded of J.C. Kumarappa's story. J.C. Kumarappa was an economist, a Gandhian economist, and in his office there were two pictures. One was Gandhiji's picture, and then there was a picture of people. So somebody comes in and says, who's that picture? So Kumarappa says, that's my boss, Gandhiji, like the guy who inspires me. So then this person asks, who's that second picture? He's like, mere boss ke boss, because Gandhiji works for people, right? And that's what it ultimately is about. So I think I love the fact, that tying it to the last person this reaches to and drawing inspiration from that. There are 2-3 very juicy threads actually that our conversation has opened up, and I'm sensing into which one to go into because you also brought millennials, Gen Z, and you do sound very refreshingly optimistic and positive about these generations that are there. We encounter a range there. So I was very tempted to kind of draw a bit on saying that how cultures need to evolve, maybe to deal with or to realize the potential of Gen Z. Let's say the problem statement is how do we make sure every generation realizes their full potential? How do we create conditions for that? I think somewhere there. So what kind of cultures are enabling these generations like millennials, Gen Z?
Okay.
Yeah.
The first thing you can't tell them is when I was your age. Can't do that. We also need to recognize that each generation brings about their own brand of wisdom. Okay. The wisdom which we bring, it's not competing with the wisdom of the millennials or the wisdom of the Gen Zs because each one's wisdom is different, which is shaped by the decade they're in.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
What the Gen Zs and the millennials also have, to be very honest, is, I think, a higher degree of social consciousness, just because of the privilege that they've been born into, right?
Hmm.
So the seeding of doing something, even if it's cutting a check, even if it's, I have seen generosity in them much more than you would see in the boomers. Again, shaped by circumstances, because the boomers have had to struggle financially, right?
Yes.
Third, just the agility that they bring with them when it comes to tech. I am fascinated by it. See, I am somebody who knows what tech can do, not necessarily wanting to use it. And I've tried to, honest confession, I'm making this on a public live streaming event. I have been, I have tried to use my CEO privileges and say that, oh, I don't need to really use it. You'd be surprised how I've been pushed into it, because again, there I feel if I don't practice, why should they? So I've learned it the hard way. Uh, they do bring maturity because there is a higher degree of self assurance in them, which you see, uh, which was not something that the older generation, they actually frowned upon it, to say that, how do you know, you haven't experienced enough, we have gone. But I think that needs to change. We need to accept that they that they do bring a unique set of experiences, and they have. They are widely traveled. They are exposed to a lot more of information and things, and you can actually have great conversations with them.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, it is tricky. It is tricky because of the number of choices placed before them. They don't know which path they want to take. It's exciting, but it's also daunting, because what we see as what our generation called as, oh, they still have it, they're so directionless. For them, it's about chalking up experiences. They look
Hmm.
at work as another sort of experience that they want to chalk up. They want to look back and say that I had a great time, I had great friends, I got to do a lot of things. It opened up my mind. And they have all these other superpowers of tech, of being able to speak, of presenting, of leveraging everything that's available for them through the internet, that they leverage the experience into progressing their life, their personal and professional goals. And that is beautiful and
Yeah.
fascinating to
Yes.
see.
Definitely. Yeah, I think for me, two, three things that stand out for me as a as an early millennial on the cusp. I see how purpose became quite central in that generation's journey, and now with a daughter who's a Gen Z daughter, I'm seeing that Gen Z is recognizing something very fundamental about their reality. That it's gone so complex that it's almost random and absurd, and they have to make their own meaning and sense making
Yes.
in that. And somehow the way I am seeing this is like you're saying, right, that now experiences matter. Like maybe purpose mattered for millennials, but for Gen Z, knowing that the universe is so random, unpredictable, I want to experience life. And
Yes.
that's fascinating, right? They're a product of their times, I guess, and what they have seen.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to take a leap in the conversation, Vijaya, because also just honoring time. There was very
Yeah.
interesting stuff keeps happening at Social Lens. The last time we met, you mentioned about an amazing program, and it was. I mean, there's so many refreshing things, but I think this program that you were coming up with is a very interesting, refreshing program. I'd love for you to share a bit about what you're intending with this new program that you're doing, where you're inviting organizations for.
So, Abhishek, for those of you who know Toolbox, for 10 years, we did the whole skilled volunteering pro bono projects for bootstrapped organizations. That was what Toolbox is known for. 11th year onwards, I said we needed to do something different. We needed to look at capacity building, which is a little bit more sustainable in terms of application, so that organizations could bring in permanent change for themselves, which volunteering would not fully be able to do. And Social Lens stepped in there to work with Toolbox, because Social Lens works in conceptualizing capacity building programs and executing them. So we said, okay, let's come up with a unique program where the USP of Toolbox would be there, that we would bring in volunteers to engage in the program in some part. But let's put organizations through an experiential year-long journey. Okay. Starting with let them understand who they are, the type of organization they are. Let's put them through 2, 3 things which we think are very fundamental for these organizations. My heart lies with small organizations, Abhishek. I don't believe in pushing for scale. I leave it to, because you have to understand, we are not a capital provider. I don't provide finance, not a funder. What I'm here is a helper. And if I want to be that person, I need to understand that I'm not here to transform an organization. There is no pressure for them to scale, to grow. What I want for them is to be able to continue to do what they do. Because I think that is the most important thing. Organizations doing good work should just be able to continue to exist. And what will that do? Capital. Now, these are small organizations. So how can we strengthen their what they do, whether it's in communication, whether it's the way they look at impact, in the way they tell their stories, how do they bring in better outcomes of their communication function? How do they look at working with their small teams who are wearing many hats and see if there is a way that they are able to strengthen themselves, fortify themselves, and bringing in capital, which is going to allow them to continue. And along the way, we want organizations which are similar because there is relatability. They learn which each other, they journey. And at the end of it, we want to be able to tell the world outside. We want to spotlight them. We will spotlight them to showcase their stories, to draw attention to their cause and say, look at these guys. And our dream is to work with 100 organizations in 3 years. So 30 organizations under the Toolbox India Values Circle, where I truly see each one of them adding value to each other and to the program because they're part of it. We see ourselves as Sutradars and navigators, really.
Beautiful. Full power to that circle and full power to the organizations. And yeah, just I think such a noble intent. And it goes back to what you were talking about, each organization being themselves, right? And you not coming in with any external agenda, but helping them be themselves, discover themselves. So I think that's really beautiful. I also wanted to use this conversation and this space to share about some culture work we've been doing. And in a way, it resonates very similarly. They're saying that who are we and what's the group's wisdom? I think one of our learnings has been that the wisdom is in the organization. Like there is a collective wisdom in the organization. And what we really need to do is tap into that, teach organizations to tap into their wisdom. And that I think for us last year gave us a calling to create a program called Developing Leaders, Designing Cultures, DLDC. And we finished the first cohort. So we're very happy that we got
Wonderful.
8 dogs from the first cohort working on something like culture. We were not sure if something like culture will be received, but we were surprised by the fact that orgs see the value of working on more and more are now seeing the value of how culture links to long-term sustainability, resources, communication, everything, because those are the collective mindsets, mental models, and so on. So we are launching our next cohort on that note as well, and again reaching out to a bunch of organizations who would like to do this work.
Okay. I think Abhishek, let's also talk more about this and understand this, unpack this a little bit, and see how culture can actually propel organizations. They can actually make or break organizations, right? And so important at a time when there is so much of the issues of attrition and so on. That's a huge, nobody really wants to talk about it, but attrition is huge. And we also got to accept that with a millennial Gen Z workforce, you're going to see that. And so what is the reasonable time that we can hold people through facilitating a culture which encourages and gives them that experience that will make them stay on for a little bit longer.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a short video on this one. less than a minute video, and I'm going to do a DLDC video. I'm going to take the liberty of doing that and with the sound. Let's see if this plays fine. Let me know if it does.
I
Thank
love
you.
it. Love it.
Yeah, this Rusty challenges, we really came up saying that, we're seeing orgs stuck in patterns. And again, I think it goes back to what we've been talking about, them knowing themselves, their mindsets, and acknowledging some of these things. So, yeah, I think that's been one of the journeys that we've been on. Yeah. I was curious, Vijay, about, yeah, sorry.
No,
Having seen so much in the sector, so many organizations, and having worked, I'm sure there will be some dreams for you, some aspirations for the sector. So I was curious. I wanted to probe a bit on what's your vision, or what would you wish for the sector? What are you hoping happens as a result of your work, our work? What's the dil ki khwahish, if there's anything there?
well, that's a tough one to answer, Abhishek. I would want for all social purpose organizations uh, to be treated with a little bit more of respect. This power equation where, because these guys are doing such good work. All of them, imagine if none of them were there. Abhishek, imagine a scenario if they weren't there. If everybody was only saying that I'll be in retail, I'll be in real estate, I'll be in manufacturing, I'll be in consulting, I'll be in advertising, I won't be doing this. Comes back to that. Why are these people doing what they're doing? Were they born differently? Was their purpose different? Why should the love of what they do, that has to change? Any kind of patronizing has to go away. I think that is the first thing which needs to come about. Change, I think, is hard. We all, I'm completely laced by pragmatism, right? I think in our lifetimes, if we are able to see some of those inequities being resolved, nothing gives me more joy when we travel around India and we just see the quality of services that are being available to the public at large to corner, whether it is an airport, whether it is a bus station, whether it is public restrooms in the country. These are the things which actually amaze me. And we know that progress is being made. So we want to see them. I think if we're able to see some of them, see thematically, I'm not a program expert, right? But when you talk education, when you talk about agency, gender gap reductions, when you talk about more people, more kids who are finding work. I mean, I'm just coming from a place today where I heard that for 14 hours of work, a husband and wife, when they harvest sugarcane, they get paid 220 rupees in the hot sun of 40 degrees in the summers. And that goes to make sugar, which people just keep putting. And it's so ironic, right? That mithai baanti hai festivals pe, but look at the sweat and blood which goes into making that key ingredient of sugar, which sweetens your mouth, on every special occasion. So I think, but it's also not possible to solve for everything. But I think what you want is universal dignity of life, universal standard of affordable living for every individual. No house, every household should be out of poverty. That's it. If we are able to see that, that is something. That's it.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful, beautiful wish and an amazing note to pause on. I was checking in with myself what's most alive, and one of the things that was most alive was I'm so glad you're on this team, on Team Humanity, on Team Social Sector. I'm like, yes, she's there, and there's such a cheerleader within me that really, like, I really feel so happy and glad that we have leaders like you, we have inspirational
Oh,
figures
no.
like you.
Abhishek, you're
So yeah,
way too kind, you're way too generous. There are so many more people who are doing so
true,
much
true,
work.
true,
I
true,
just
true.
borrow their goodness and shine in the bask in the reflected light of their light. Honestly, it is all them.
Hmm.
So
True.
and it's been a lovely 60 minutes talking with you. You bring so
So
much of
glad. So much.
you have this
Yeah,
very
yeah,
zen like this thing, and honestly this conversation has been like never any other conversation that I have had, and it's been
yeah.
every minute
It's
has
nice.
been lovely.
Yes. Thank you so much,
Thank
Vijaya. And
you.
yeah, a lot
And
of
for
fun
all of
as
you
well.
who've sat with us through this last 60 minutes, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.